Hey, welcome back to another video. Rooster Teeth's RWBY has been a bit of a big deal since it debuted way back in 2013. It's become this huge phenomenon both in and out of the US, with genuinely absurd amounts of merch, fan creations, and even a few theatrical releases. I've been keeping up with the show since a little bit after Volume 2, but it wasn't until really recently that I got big into it. I did a huge rewatch after catching up on Volume 6 and was properly sucked into the series to the point where it's become one of my favorite works of fiction. It's far from a masterpiece, but I think the series is a testament to how much just being an enjoyable watch can carry a show. And for me, a major source of enjoyment from RWBY has to be the music, specifically the vocal songs. Handled mostly by the fantastic Jeff Williams, who also did some great work with Rooster Teeth's other big series Red vs. Blue and his daughter Casey Lee Williams, RWBY's music is honestly far better than it really needs to be. It's astonishing that the songs for a random web series made by a company who were previously most well known for making fun of Halo are better than half of what's put out by actual music companies. The series also integrates its terrific tunes incredibly well, the songs adding in some extra meat to the plot and characters and fleshing everything out just that much more. So, to celebrate the myriad of musical masterpieces manufactured by these magical maestros, I'm going to go over what I consider to be the solitary superiors of the series' spectacular songs. We're going to be getting a little analytical here, but a lot of this is just going to be me gushing about some rad music. All songs from the series are up for consideration, save for most of Volume 6's, since we only have the full version of one song. That said, an honorable mention has to go to Volume 6's opening, Rising, which just might end up being my favorite opening for the show. But I feel I should wait until we have the whole thing before I fully make that call. It should also be made clear that these aren't placed in any particular order, so don't get angry with me because one song appears later down the line than another. With all that BS out of the way, let's get started. It seems only fitting that the first song to spotlight be one of the openings, and while they're all great, I think my favorite, at least at the moment, goes to Volume 5's opening, The Triumph. This song came as a bit of a relief after the other openings, with Volume 1 to 3's all being ominous and foreboding about how things are gonna get bad fast, and Volume 4's opening reflected the more dour mood that volume had as a whole. Volume 5, though, finally broke away from the trend. It makes direct reference to some of the events of Volume 3, like the Grimm attacking during the fall of Beacon and Yang losing her arm, but doesn't act like these tragedies mean that they're completely screwed. Instead, it actually treats them as experiences that they've learned from and even used to keep going, that they've made it through all these terrible things and are still kicking. Precisely. The message is that reflecting on the past and wallowing in sorrow isn't going to get anybody anywhere, and now is the time to stand up and get back into the fray. The Triumph is about standing up in the face of great adversity, that despite how great the threat to the world is, and how the heroes are in a pretty bad spot, ultimately they're still pressing onward, and will eventually come out on top. Now let's take a trip back to Volume 2, grab ourselves a cup of Folgers, and talk about Caffeine. The theme of Team Coffee, Caffeine has a lot less to analyze, so this one's going to be mostly me gushing about a rockin' song. Much like the chemical it takes its name from, Caffeine is a highly energetic song, just chock full of this insanely heavy guitar. It's the kind of song that fits well during the climax of an action movie. Fitting, then, that the scene it played in featured Team Coffee absolutely wrecking a horde of Grimm. The scene is already super hype since this is the first and sort of only time we've really gotten to see them in action, but the aggressive sound the song added to it just makes the whole bit stick out. It also features what I like to call the holy trinity of Jeff Williams music, with Jeff himself singing for the first verse, Casey Lee Williams coming in for the second, and the ever-amazing Lamar Hall providing a rap verse near the end to really mix things up, keeping the song from feeling too samey. If there's anything to complain about, it's that it does fall a bit into list of things territory, especially during Lamar Hall's rapid-fire naming of coffee-related products, but that's really a very minor complaint in the face of how great the song sounds. It's just one of those songs that overcomes any of its faults merely because of how energizing it is. Next, we move into Volume 3 with Divide. The ending theme to the volume, and theme of the main villain of the series, Salem, Divide is a bit darker than most of the show's other songs. The tone at the end of Volume 3 was very downtrodden, since, you know, Beacon had been pretty much ruined, people were dead, things just really weren't going well for anybody except the villains, and Divide references that tone. Jeez. Yeah, it's a little heavy, but it works to really drive home how bad things were at the end of Volume 3. The message of the song is one directly from Salem to the main characters, gloating in her victory and promising that she'll only make things worse, and that they have zero chance of stopping her.
It was you who ended their lives, made them to dig their own graves. With your dark, sick, cruel design, convinced them their world could be saved.
I especially like this part and some of the other similar lyrics directed to Beacon Headmaster and Token Mystery Guy Ozpin. Salem turns the blame for the death and destruction onto him for recruiting other people to fight his battles for him, and then saying that it was all hopeless anyway. Divide exists to really show how awful things had become for the heroes at the end of Volume 3, and it does an excellent job of doing so. Lyrics that are more or less Salem rubbing salt in the wound, and a dark, heavy instrumentation that brings a very sinister vibe to the song. Definitely a fitting theme for Salem, and one that worked perfectly at the ending of Volume 3. And for our final song, we continue into Volume 4 with Armed and Ready. I find Volume 4's character songs to be particularly interesting compared to the ones up to this point, in that not only are they the point when the series' music really gets into describing characters and situations, but I'd also say we get some actual theme changes this season, and Armed and Ready is no exception. This is Yang's character song for the volume, and if you ask me, I'd consider it her proper theme post-Volume 4, replacing I Burn from the first volume. Yang spends a lot of Volume 4 recovering from the end of the previous volume, dealing with the destruction of Beacon and the mental trauma from Adam cutting off her arm, and Armed and Ready is essentially the end of that recovery, playing right at the end of the volume once Yang is finally back on her feet.
My misery, my agony, taught me to fly. The pain I went through left me with a newborn cry.
Playing on the idea of Yang's semblance, taking damage dealt to her and dealing it back, the song refers a lot to Yang taking her trauma and using it to push forward and to make herself stronger from this point onward. It's important to note that the lyrics don't really mention that she's no longer affected by what happened, just that she's not letting it hold her down. What Yang went through isn't something that can be shaken off lightly, and it's going to affect her for a while, but the message of the song is that despite that, she's finally able to move on and not just stay sulking in patch all the time.
Feel like I'm finally unbroken. Feel like I'm back from the dead.
And the chorus just drives the entire message home. It encapsulates the whole point of the song, giving off this phoenix rising from the ashes vibe when the instrumentation rises to its peak. Yang is about as close to her old self as she's gonna get, and she's ready to get back out into the fray and kick ass again. And if I may get serious for a second, parts of the song also connect with me personally. I went into this in the update video I did before, but I fell into a slump recently where I just kinda moped and hated everything I did, sitting around like a slug. But it's been through RWBY and its fantastic music that my passion for making videos has been reignited. Wanting to make this very video, analyzing and gushing about the music of the series, is what's got me back into making content. So it's really through the music and the series in general that, and forgive me if this is a little cheesy, I feel like I'm back from the dead. So, on the off chance that anyone from the crew is actually seeing this, thank you. I'm sure it's a regular thing for people to say, but the series really has affected me, and I believe helped me get back into things and improve myself. Now with that spiel over with, we come to the end of the video. There is one more song I want to talk about, but it's such a big one that I really want to give it its own spotlight, so we'll get to that next time. That's all for now, and I will see you guys next time.